Blessed be all my people out there. In this video, we are going to be talking about negative energy. What is negative energy? The death force, the decomposition force, the destruction force, the decay force as a force of nature, and what it is as a spiritual force of nature, as a part of existence. And we're also going to be doing some demystifying, some disambiguation work, some vocabulary work around identifying the difference between, say, a negative energy buildup versus a crossed condition or a hex and a curse, so that you can also see the difference in what is going on in each of those situations as well. And the reason I think that it's important to be able to do that vocabulary work and that disambiguation work is because when you're going out and you're hunting for correspondences, and you're looking at, okay, well, these herbs are good for cleansing, but this oil is good for uncrossing, and this here is good for breaking a curse, and so on and so forth. It's important to understand that while there could be some overlap in certain situations and what's going on, not all of them do, and so you want to make sure that you are studying and working with the right things, and that you are employing the right things, and you're taking the right steps when it comes to alleviating these circumstances. And for those of you that were actually drawn to this video because you are looking to alleviate something that could be seen as a buildup of negative energy, a cross condition, a hex, or a curse, I've got a lot of videos on this channel that are geared towards, helping you to do things yourself, to take care of yourself and break a lot of hexes and curses and things like that. So please check those out. You can find them just by looking over my playlist section. But in this video, we're going to be talking about how negative energy works as a spiritual force of nature, as well as, again, disambiguating what is the difference between this, that, and the other thing. So let's talk about it. What is going on with negative energy? What is it? First off, I do want to say when I'm talking about negative energy, we are not talking about moods, we are not talking about feelings, we're not talking about emotions, and we're not talking about good and evil. If we stop at binary or emotional reasoning when it comes to looking at forces of nature, we have already savagely blunted and curtailed our spiritual path and practice. This is not about value judgments. We all have our own beliefs about what is good and what is evil, but in this situation, we are just simply talking about a force of nature that is, again, it's a part of of everything. It is a part of existence. The negative energy, death force, decomposition force, decay force is, it's out in the woods. It's in our own bodies, right? We employ that force when our white blood cells attack and destroy invasive microbes. We employ that force when our bodies break down food to take their constituents and components and turn them into nutrients. We employ that force when we shed dead skin cells and hair. So it's really important that we are looking at it from that perspective when we are talking about these kinds of things, or again, we're just not going to get very far. That is essentially, though, what the death force is. It is the force of decay, transformation, transmutation, and destruction. That is what negative energy is when we are talking about spirituality and magic. When that gets out of balance, negative energy is there to destroy things, to break them down and take them away. Again, it's just a force of nature. Now, when we are dealing with what is negative energy naturally attracted to, right? When we're not talking about psychic attacks and blasts and curses and hexes and all of that kind of thing, what invites it? The invitation of negative energy into a given space or circumstance is a natural response, right? It's a universal response to stagnation, to ruin, to death itself calling for the death force. So when we look at it that way, what tends to attract what we call negativity in terms of an experience, in terms of the vibration? Typically, it's things that are stagnant. The energy is stagnant. It's slowed down, almost inert, or maybe it is waste. things that are already going through the process of decay and decomposition, or have already come through it and are continuing to break down more and more. And so the universe is responding to that by then bringing more of that death force in. So that would be kind of like the dirty way that the death force comes in. It's everything's in a process of decay. Everything is starting to rot and go through a slow transmutation and transformation. Could be getting more and more broken down, losing its constitution, and becoming less and less coherent, and also not as capable of holding any kind of maybe charge that we would see as more supportive or clean or energetically giving. Now, that's one way for negative energy to come in and that destructive force to go to work. That's the dirty way. Now, the clean way is through high intense impact. So we are talking about more raw destruction. So this is the intense blast. This is the chaos. The energy that is more violent can also break up energy forms and energy systems and invite that death force to come in and then respond to that as well. Sometimes things can be brought about by circumstance, and negative energies can be imparted as what could be seen as an unintended consequence or a mindless attack. This tends to show up in more social kinds of situations. People freaking out, blowing up on each other. You know, again, we all pee, poop, and shed dead skin cells, right? We all have negative energy within us, and we all have, expressions and expulsions and things that we do to release it, to move it. It's not about the fact that it exists. Reset things, cleanse and clear that, or you would bring in peace, harmony, something to override and overwrite what was expelled, what was brought into that space. But that is all general maintenance, right? That is the maintenance that is going in with the smudge of incense or cedar or sage. That is the maintenance of scattering salt, the maintenance of a wash, the maintenance of sound and singing bowls, or maybe some kind of sound therapy or toning that you want to do. That all goes into just general maintenance, the first aid kit, the broom and dust pan, the hose, the mop and bucket kind of thing. And that, for the most part, is all anyone ever really needs to do to energetically keep things good. However, negative energy does have its own process of evolution, and it can turn into more. And yes, there are also spiritual practices that employ negative energy to do more. And so we have from that cross conditions, hexes, and curses that are either naturally occurring or maybe environmentally or self or group imposed. And then we have cross conditions, hexes, and curses that could be attacks, things that are actually thrown and projected and sent. And so, again, it could be one or the other, and sometimes it's a mixture of all of the above. When you're dealing with a hex or a crossed condition, let's talk about those first. So cross conditions and hexes, those terms are actually interchangeable. So if you're looking, for different tools and materials and things like that, and it's like, okay, this is a hex breaker, or this is an uncrossing, oil or whatever, they're going to do the same thing. Because basically what is happening there is that you are breaking up a complication and cleansing at the same time. That is sort of the change that happens when you're dealing with the difference between a general negative energy blockage and decay buildup versus a full-blown cross condition or hex. When you are dealing with a cross condition or a hex, there is something, there is a greater consequence or a greater complication to deal with in addition to that negative energy buildup. It's kind of like a flu. People get the flu. They might get symptoms, right? They might get the fever. They might get achy joints. lose energy, have respiratory problems, and a whole lot of other things that could come along with the flu as just typical symptoms. When we're talking about a crossed condition or a full-on hex, which are again, same thing, a complication on top of that has manifest. So in the case of the flu example, it would be somebody with the flu having the flu get so bad that they get pneumonia. So pneumonia would have to be dealt with as its own thing while dealing with the flu. And that would, so the pneumonia would be the crossed condition or the hex, and then the flu would just be the buildup of general negative energy. So a cleansing at that point in time would not be enough. Okay, this is where it's already gone too far for, say, sage or sound or salt or maybe even just a general wash is going to do enough. It's not going to cover all bases. And that's why it's like, okay, this person got over the flu, but they still have the pneumonia or something like that. That's kind of what you're dealing with a hex or a crossed condition. Another example would be looking at a home. And maybe a household situation where you're dealing with a repair issue. So say for whatever reason, a home had standing water in one of the rooms. And so that standing water would be like the accumulation of negative energy. But once that standing water, rotted a hole in the floor, created a complication that needs to be addressed, now you're dealing with a crossed condition on top of the fact that there is obviously a leak somewhere or something is bringing in enough water for there to be standing water to eventually eat through the floor. So it would take more than just simply cleaning up the water at that point or cleansing to fix everything that has gone wrong in that situation effectively. So when you're talking about, is this something that was imparted into the situation, right? Was this an attack? Did this come from somebody else? Did somebody hex or cross so-and-so? Or did so-and-so and whatever else was going on in the situation create or manifest a hex or a cross condition for themselves? Or maybe it caught them by surprise. Maybe it was an accident. There's all kinds of reasons why these things might happen, and sometimes these things do, or maybe they got a really aggressive strain of the flu again, and there was nothing they could really do about it. So that is, again, there's all kinds of different ways a cross condition or a hex can come up. But when you're dealing with that, cleansing itself is not enough. You're going to need to uncross. You're going to have to hex break at that point in time. Now, luckily, in a lot of cases, especially when you're dealing with somebody who might be trying to help you uncross or break a hex in a situation, cleansing is going to come along with it. So we could look at it like, all right, an uncrossing and a hex breaking, that is going to be, again, we're cleansing and we're dealing with the situation all at once. But a cleansing all by itself, right, that's just maintenance. So it's probably not going to go as far as you need it to go, but you don't need to go that far all the time, right? Prevent the buildup of things, right? You're going to keep those things under control, and so you don't have to worry about things kind of cropping up on their own. You could also, if you feel capable as well as, how, you can do a return to sender. You can do a reversal. You can send a hex or the energy of that hex or the energy of a crossed condition back if it was actually sent to you by another person or imparted upon you or your space or your business or whatever by another person. However, if it doesn't go anywhere, if it's either A, getting picked up and dropped back on the floor because it originated where you are or with what's going on. You might not have created it. It might have grown, or you may have created it yourself. Or you might be in a situation where this was a co-creation. And so it may be this has nowhere to go and it can't go back to a single sender because guess what? This was created by everybody in the household, everybody in the family. both people in the relationship or everybody at the office. And so return to senders aren't always the best go-to. It might be better to simply uncross or hex break that situation. So what about curses? Curses are kind of like the final evolution or the final boss. In a way, curses kind of take on a life of their own. They're not sentient, and they are not necessarily always thought forms, but they do kind of take on a life of their own. And whereas, say, a crossed condition or a hex is something that is localized in its influence, as in like one particular area of life. Like, okay, if the hex is at the office, then the hex is only at the office and everything else is fine. If it's at home, but everything else is fine. If it's the relationship, it's just the relationship, and then everything else is fine. A curse has a tendency to be a bit more evolved in a weird way. It kind of has an imperative to populate and spread or continue itself. And that's where you get things like generational curses and whatnot, but also curses that can spread from an environment, a person, a space, or a family or a situation into other spaces. And so if you're dealing with a situation where it's kind of like everything is, seems to be following the same theme, there may be a curse involved. Now, curses themselves are cleared in very much the same way. Again, most uncrossings and hex breakings will break a curse. A curse will also be lifted to a certain degree by a return to sender. The thing about curses is, though, because they often can be so widespread, it's not something that is just going to be a one-off clearing, right? A hex and an uncross, that's kind of a one-off situation or a localized situation. So it's going to take way less effort, way less time to remove it. When you're dealing with a curse, you are going to be going at it for like a week, 2 weeks, half a moon cycle, sometimes a full moon cycle. A hex is, or a cross condition you might remove, in over the course of a couple of days. And so a curse is going to require dedication. Also, you're going to have to address a lot more complications that can come up from a curse. So there could be a complication or an issue with your finances, just like there's a complication or an issue with the relationship or with a family member or with the housing situation or whatever is going on there. There's a lot of stuff going on with a curse. So a curse, would be, again, lifted, but you're going to be addressing several things at the same time. You could either look at it as a curse, or you could look at it as a jumble of hexes or a jumble of crossed conditions that have all kind of formed an amalgam and kind of taken on, again, a sort of a life of their own. Not sophisticated, not an intelligent, sentient life, but something more akin to, say, like mold that spreads or something like that. Curses themselves also can be cast, of course, we know this. And curses, the difference, though, between curses and hexes and cross conditions is that they tend to be held up more continuously, and they also come on more slowly. So a curse is not something like a hex or a cross condition where it's like, bam, oh my God, I just walked into something, or something just hit the house, or something just hit whatever. A curse is something that's a bit more insidious. It can take a while, months, sometimes years, to realize that a situation is cursed, or that a person has been cursed. This can also indicate, a curse because, again, it just kind of crept up. Curses themselves are also fed, right? They need to be fed. They are often empowered over time, whether it's empowered by people, beyond just simple, not being able to do maintenance or not doing maintenance, right? That's kind of more of the negative energy buildup or the uncrossing or the hexing situation. A curse is more maintained. Typically with curses, it's a part of a package deal. It's attached to the existence or the presence of something, and it is also getting a chance to feed on that, get nutrients from that. So when we're talking about, say, a cursed office, the presence of the people in that office are also feeding the curse. A cursed relationship or a cursed marriage, it's kind of like, okay, well, the curse is a package deal with the marriage. At least that's how it's been fused. Or maybe it's a cursed family situation, right? A generational curse. It's bound up. It's fused with the family. And so in order to address that, it's kind of like we have to first really focus on clearing and eliminating the curse, right? And be diligent. It could take weeks. It could take a month. But also at the same time realize with the going of the curse goes a portion of the reality of what was cursed. And we have to be ready to let that go as well. Now that can be a tough thing to deal with. I've done curse removals and curse purges for people, and sometimes people will go and try to get that reality back and pull the curse back on top of themselves. And that is, again, that is their choice, that is to their free will, but it needs to be understood that trying to get that old reality back that was basically inextricably wrapped up in the curse, right, fused with the curse, is only going to bring the curse back. So when things get that far, either because the curse, again, naturally evolved and was created over time, or it was cast once upon a time, or created once upon a time, or came as part of a package deal once upon a time, there are additional complications that keep coming. So that is basically the curse family in a nutshell. General negativity accumulation, uncrossings and hex breakings, as well as curses and curse liftings. Now, again, if you are, maybe dealing with a situation where you'd like to tackle something or take a crack at fixing something that you've got going on, and that's what drew you to this video, I do have plenty of DIY videos on this channel where I walk you through how to make your own, whether it's powder or craft your own spell or your own working in order to get down to business and clearing and eliminating any kind of accumulations of negativity, as well as break hexes, curses, and cross conditions. So if that is what you would like to do, of course, check that out. But again, once certain things have gone too far, it's going to require more of you and everybody involved to remediate the situation. Once a situation has gotten to cross condition or hex territory, regular cleansing maintenance tools such as sage, sound, salt, etc. are not going to be enough. You need more. Once things have gone into curse territory, doing it for a day or 3 days isn't going to be enough. You're going to need to really dedicate some time and be disciplined in order to kind of rid everything. And you might need to uncross or do a curse breaking on several different areas of life all at once. But that is something that you want to be determined to do if you are determined to be cleared and, of course, get past them. So that is what I've got for you in today's video, guys. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, don't forget my name is Nico. I've also got another channel, Son of Selene, where I do a lot of astrology and tarot forecasts. In fact, that's all I do over on that channel, so you might want to check that one out as well. If you would like to get a tarot reading or an astrology reading from me, you can go on ahead to my website, integrativemysticism.com. And again, like, share, and subscribe, and share this with those you think would be helped by this.